Morning VC. My name is Richard and I'm a record collector. When I saw that bit in the Alan Swags video vinyl, I just had a laugh out loud. That was the only little bit that guy had in that documentary film. I'm sure many or most of you have watched it. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people see that and think, oh, it's sad or pathetic or OCDs or whatever, but all of us that have been collectors have seen just a little bit of ourselves in a lot of those people, and it wasn't all funny, but overall, I thought it was hilarious, and for collecting records, for me, it was inspiring. I'm originally a farm boy from western Kansas. I currently live in the Sacramento, California area. I've been there for a long time. Uh, I graduated in 1960 from high school, so you can see what my music was that I listened to. Um my father was a little bit of an audiophile and was a record collector and a music lover. And probably when I was 10 or 11, he built me a really nice record player, a nice wood cabinet. The parts were ordered separately, a turntable, an amplifier, a nice speaker, and I probably had the nicest record player of any of the kids at that time. Um, would go to the record store in the early 50s, and the first records I bought were mostly 78s. I wasn't quite in the rock and roll period, hasn't started yet. Um, in the 10-cent bin, remember those days? They had 78s. So one of the 78s I got before he became famous was Bill Haley and the Comet 78. Uh, one of the first records I went and bought because I wanted the record was Bill Haley and the Comet, See You Later, Alligator. I still have a few of my records from those days. I have quite a few of the 45s, but they're buried in the garage someplace and I haven't been able to find them. I do have this record. This record came out in 1956. I bought it new in 1956. Probably hasn't been played since about 1960. One of the things that happened in the 50s, you maybe can see, maybe you can't, has my name written on it here. We would go to dances, we would go to things at school, maybe at people's house, and we would take records that we wanted to listen and dance to, so we would write our name on them. On the back of this record was also the name of my girlfriend at the time. Also, I see which finger to use here. Uh, this finger, you got to learn how to work this. You can see right there pinstriping. In the 1950s, pinstriping hot rods were a big deal, and I tended to pinstripe everything I got my hands on. The original record, I'm not going to take it out, is in pretty good condition. You can see on a piece of like medical bandage tape, I have my name written on it. That was so, of course, we could find them after the party was over. This record's in pretty good condition. It's not great. It would be playable. One of the early records I bought, this is really before rock and roll got started. So there were two of these albums, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I had both of them. I got these records because as LPs They were only $1 a piece back in that day. Back then, you could go to a matinee movie for 25 cents, so a LP was fairly expensive. Um, I was surprised to see, I saw a picture of this cover on Discogs. I thought maybe nobody would have ever seen this before. I'll kid you guys a little bit about this picture. You notice in great big letters it says rock and roll. The cover is full of pictures of musical instruments. Not a guitar on there. Back, not very interesting, but I got a yellow sticky and a pointer there. They spelled vinyl Vynil. This record was probably like a 1953, 4, something like that. And it was early enough in the vinyl period, they hadn't even figured out how to spell vinyl yet. One of the things that was interesting in that time period, one of my favorite bands, as I mentioned, was Bill Haley and the Comets. And back then, in the very early days of rock and roll, often the guitar, electric guitar, was not even the lead instrument. In Bill Haley's band, the lead instrument was tenor saxophone. And a number of other bands featured tenor saxophone back in the early 1950s. So in junior high, I started playing the tenor saxophone. I played it through high school. I wasn't very good at it, so that was the end of that. But I thought that was kind of interesting. The tenor sax player in Bill Haley and the Comets band was Rudy Pompelli. He was a quite good saxophonist. I read in some magazines in some later years where he'd even won some jazz polls and so forth as saxophonist. Of course, he never was well known as an individual, so most people don't know of him today. My favorite artist during the 1950s was Little Richard. I got most of his 45s. I still have most of the 45s. In 1960, I went into the Navy, and my little sister took over my record collection. So the fact that some years later I was able to retrieve some of it is still surprising. Of course, a lot of those have been worn quite a bit. They were played a lot. I did, over the years, keep a lot of my vinyl. I've still got 2 that I found, probably 3 or 4 big boxes in the garage. I've been digging those out, cleaning them up. Like a lot of you, I was a big music listener, a big music buyer, fan. When CDs come out, I went whole hog. Everything got put on the computer. The CDs are in the garage. Everything else is in the garage. That was so convenient. The Elvis record was 1956. I've been making fun of the guitar guys here because I know that's what rock and roll's all about. I had the comment, they're almost essential for blues music. Now, I know all you folks, a lot of you folks in the VC are into modern jazz, and I've seen a lot of records about modern jazz and so forth. Yeah, I've been digging that too. I like that modern jazz. I've been listening to some Duke Ellington, some Count Basie. Yeah, those modern guys are really good. All kidding aside, folks, well, a lot of you folks in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s were listening to heavy rock and roll, metal, punk rock and roll, acid rock and roll, whatever all the kinds of rock and rolls were. I was listening to, among other things, Randy Newman. He's one of my favorites. He's the American poet and an American treasure. Won't take these out because I'm sure most all of you have seen these before, and they're just records. But I love Randy Newman. At the time, I had nearly everything he did on vinyl, and now I've probably got everything on CD. Another one of my favorites. Ry Cooder. This particular album was Chicken Skin Music. It was one of my favorites. He did a series of, I think, 3 LPs that were all what he called the chicken skin music genre. I thought these were real good. It's interesting, when CDs come out, I got everything on CD, but I never got this record on CD. I don't know if it didn't come out on CD or I was just never able to find it, but I'm glad that I still have the vinyl. One of my other favorites, which I don't have anything right here to show from that period and still going strong today, is blues guitarist and singer Rory Block. Her first LP was called The Early Tapes, and it is one of my top 10 favorite records. I don't know if I still have it on vinyl or not. I have it on CD, and I've looked on eBay and so forth, and it doesn't appear to be a very common record. Loved the VC, and one of the things that was surprising and interesting to me, I always thought I had a diverse taste in music, but man, the depth of stuff that people listen to amazes me, and I'm working to try to catch up and expand my knowledge about a lot of the music that I've been unaware with over the years. Just going to show a few albums that I've picked up since I started watching the videos on YouTube. Not going to show the records again. Everybody's seen these. Gainsbourg. Would not know about this except for the VC. Several people had showed this record and said it was essential, so I had to get it to expand my education. One of my current favorites, latest album, Melody Gardot. I'm sure a lot of you know this. Her previous album I have on CD, Lover Undercover, one of my absolute favorite songs right now, and the audio fidelity on that recording was outstanding, so I'm really enjoying that. I've got several of them on CD, and I have the rest of them on vinyl. One of probably the first vinyls I bought when I started watching and got interested in this again was this album. Always loved B.B. King, Eric Clapton, and I think this is a fantastic cover. Opens up, not going to open it up to see the whole car. Best traditional blues album, Grammy winning, 180 gram gatefold. Really a nice record, and really been enjoying this. One of the other records I wanted to mention, and I was going to talk a little bit more, but just in the recent video, Tube Turtle showed this record and talked about it from her own Derek Higgins. I've got I wanted to show the vinyl. This other people have showed this, but this piece of vinyl should be in the Museum of Modern Art. It doesn't matter if you like music or records or not. Sorry about the phone, folks. The video's almost over. I'm not going to stop now, but everybody should have this just for the piece of art. I have a little rant I know the big music places aren't listening. You put out new vinyl, you need either a CD or a download card, and the download card needs to not expire. You buy the record, you should get the download. And like always, the big music labels are usually about 10 years behind on what's going on. This is my introductory video. The title of this album is Riding with the King. I'd like to encourage you all to ride along with me on this journey. We're going to have some fun. I've got one little teaser here for my next video that I'm working on. I think some of you will be interested in this. My next video will be about Sheffield Lab Records. A little bit about their history, a little bit about the people. I'm going to show some of the records. That was kind of really, maybe not the beginning, but the resurgence of the beginning of audiophile records that focus primarily on the recorded sound quality on the vinyl. So folks, subscribe and come along. See ya.